Classic Gamer 74. For those of you that don't know, Anthony is on vacation, so this week is my turn to present the episode. And for those of you that don't know, I am Humphrey the Wolf, and as you can tell by the accent, I'm not from around these parts. Anyway, since I have the choice of what to do my episode about, I am going to do mine on the computer that I was raised with, and that is the ZX Spectrum, or as it is known as the Specky, or those of you on this side of the pond, you call it the ZX Spectrum. Z. Anyway, so let us begin. First of all, I'm going to give you a little bit of background information about the ZX Spectrum itself, what kind of system it ran on, and all that good technical stuff. So without further ado, let us begin.
Righto, so the ZX Spectrum is an 8-bit personal home computer developed by Sinclair Research, and was first released in the United Kingdom on April 23rd, 1982. And it became Britain's biggest selling computer. Now, it was actually officially discontinued in 1992, giving it about a 10-year life. So as far as memory goes, it had not too much at that time. It actually would run on 64K, much like many of the others, or 48. Now, interestingly enough, it also had 16K memory. A couple other interesting aspects of it is that it ran on a 3-inch floppy disk, later, towards the end of its life, compact disc, but mostly it was known for working on cassettes. For those of you that are quite young and watching this, cassette tapes are usually associated with music, but in the early days of microcomputing, they actually put software on these as well. Even though it had some competitors at the time, what really set it apart was the color scheme. The color scheme itself is quite interesting and unique to this particular computer. Even other computers at the time didn't match it. There are some people who really don't like it, but I find that quite funny, especially those who like to defend the CGA graphics of the MS-DOS. Anyway, the main competitors at the time, as far as on this side of the pond, as most people in the United States don't even know about this if it wasn't for other YouTubers such as Kim Justice, who have brought the glory of the ZX Spectrum to the rest of the world. Those competitors include the Amstrad CPC, the BBC Micro, and of course the Commodore 64, which is well known on your side of the world as well. Another interesting thing is that they used the Kempston joystick, which joystick interface. Those of you that use emulators on this usually set your joysticks to Kempston, and therefore you can use the settings in RetroArch. Regardless of whether this was considered a gaming computer is irrelevant. The computer itself had word processing and other interfaces that other computers of that time had, and still have to this day. But, of course, its biggest aspect is that of gaming.
And now I'm going to share with you some games that are unique for the ZX Spectrum, or games that those of you on this side of the pond have not heard about. So let us begin.
And our first game for today is Manic Miner. Now, if this looks a little familiar, perhaps it should, as it has several aspects of that one game. What's it called? Oh yes, Miner 2049er. In this game, you are collecting keys, as opposed to lighting up the areas, and you must be very careful for those radioactive monsters that are trying to stop you. A fun platformer game, but very, very challenging. So, if you are a fan of Miner 2049er and you'd like to play a more difficult rendition, perhaps, or game inspired by that, this is the one for you. And next we have Hunchback. Now, one thing that you'll notice is quite a few of the games here for the ZX Spectrum were made by Ocean Software, which was one of probably the biggest software creators in Britain. Excuse me. In this game, this platformer game, you are taking on the role of Quasimodo, the Hunchback. Many of you are familiar with the book by Victor Hugo and the various film adaptations of it. A typical platformer game, and definitely one that is not as easy as you would think it is. And that is a recurring theme with many of the games here for the Specky, is that these games are not going to be extremely easy. The challenge level is definitely high on all software, making replayability second to none. Next up, we have Rainbow Islands. Now, this is the sequel of sorts to Bubble Bobble. Many of you are familiar with that game with the cute little dragons as they are trying to destroy their enemies and turn them into fruit. Now, in this game, Bubby and Bobby set out to defeat the Dark Shadow and rescue the Rainbow Islands. It's a fun and very challenging platformer game. Really a lot of fun as you are able to go up and down with the help of rainbow power. As many of you are probably familiar, Bubble Bobble is probably one of the most successful arcade games in the United Kingdom, and its popularity is pretty high around the rest of the world, but it's not as appreciated on America as it is in England. This game, however, is a whole lot of fun and is much more challenging than Bubble Bobble. So for those of you who enjoyed that game, you're going to really enjoy Rainbow Islands. For those of you who really enjoyed Road Rash and games such as that, you're going to love Enduro Racer. This one was actually made by Activision. Yes, Activision did make some games for the ZX Spectrum, and this is one of them. A really fun and challenging motorcycle racing game, and one that I'm sure fans of all ages will enjoy. A little on the challenging side, I might say. Not exactly as easy as you may think it is. It combines a little bit of Road Rash, a little bit of Hang On, and a little bit of Enduro, that Atari 2600 game, to make a really fun and competitive motorcycle racing game. Now, this is a unique one right here. This is Death Chase. This is from 1983 for Mike Omega. In this game, you are taking on a motorcycle riding mercenary, and you're pursuing two other motorcycles, one blue and one yellow, through a forest. Now, each of them are worth 1,000 points, and so your objective is to take them out. Now, be warned, though, as there are other enemies that are coming after you, like a tank and a helicopter, but your biggest enemy and the one you have to watch out for the most are the trees. Yep, it's quite difficult after a while to drive around, especially at nighttime, and not run headfirst into the trees. Overall, this is probably the most original game that I've played for the Specky, and one that I highly recommend for just about anyone who like to see a very early game pushing the Specky to its limits. Now, this one's quite interesting. It's called 3D Monster Chase. It came out in 1984 and was released by Romic Software. In this game, you are trying to go through a maze, find keys, and get out. Easier said than done, as you have all kinds of enemies trying to get you. A really fun game with stunning graphics for its time. A must-play. And you had to know this one was going to be in there somewhere. This is Jet Set Willy. This is an interesting game in which you take on the role of this gentleman named Willie, and you are going around collecting items in your mansion. Now, the most messed up things are going on here. It's just bizarre as heck. But it was so popular that several, and I do mean several, sequels were made for this, including some fan-made games, homebrews, if you will. So, if you are one of the few people that haven't checked out this game, I highly recommend it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. Danger Mouse is a cartoon that ran for 10 seasons in the UK. In this game, Danger Mouse in Double Trouble, you take on the role of Danger Mouse, the super spy, and you are trying to stop your arch enemy, Baron Greenback, and save the world. In the first level, Danger Mouse and his sidekick Penfold are in their aero car destroying oncoming robots. The second level, the characters are traveling through a jungle avoiding different creatures, and the third and final level is the showdown in the lair of Baron Greenback, which Danger Mouse using a row of buttons to control lights so that the android can be stopped before destroying the world. If you are a fan of this cartoon, you will enjoy this game, and if you're not a fan of the cartoon, you will be. Please check the cartoon out on Netflix. It's jolly good fun for all. Speaking of cartoon tie-ins, the next one we have is Count Duckula in No Sax Please, We're Egyptian. This is a 2D platformer game, and you take on the role of the cartoon character Count Duckula, and you are trying to find the magic saxophone in Egypt. Of course, your faithful servants Igor and Nanny have come along with you. But it's not going to be easy, as the evil Crow brothers are trying to stop you from collecting this. There's mummies and all kinds of other fun creatures in there, and you have to collect the keys in order to find them. But remember, you only have so much time before Castle Duckula returns to Transylvania. And of course, we can't discuss the ZX Spectrum without mentioning Dizzy. Yes, Dizzy. The iconic Little Egg That Could character that was a staple on the ZX Spectrum and other European game consoles. What you're looking at here is Dizzy 3. Now, of course, this game has just celebrated its 40th anniversary, and new games are being made as we speak right now. So if you haven't had a chance to try any of these Dizzy games, I highly recommend them. And here we have some games that were made available on other computers, or ones that you may be familiar with that were released on this side of the world. First off is RoboCop. Now, of course, you know this game. You are the cyborg crime fighter. You're going around shooting the bad guys and all that cool stuff. Lots of good fun. Outrun, which has been covered by other such great YouTubers out there, and a game that pretty much is a hit on whatever game system or computer system it is. The wind in your hair, the great music, and driving like you've just lost your mind. Lots of fun. Donkey Kong, the original platformer game, the first appearance of the legendary Mario. Yes, in this wonderful, iconic game, you are trying to rescue Pauline from the evil Donkey Kong. This version's a little bit more difficult than some of the other ports of the game, but Anthony has already said that he is going to have a new and improved Donkey Kong Arcade vs. port coming when he returns. Next, we have Commando. This game is well known to probably most of you as a shoot-'em-up game where you are trying to destroy the bad guys with the help of your trusty machine gun and some grenades. Lots of shooting fun for gamers of all ages. But those of us that were older remember when this game came out. Oh, how many hours we probably spent playing this game, I can't tell you, but boy was this game a lot of fun, and still is. And last, we have Moon Patrol. Many of you are probably familiar with this one, as you are on the moon, jumping over holes, shooting aliens, and shooting rocks. Incidentally, this was the first game that Anthony ever got the top 10 on in the arcade. He's very proud of that. Now, of course, there are several other games that we haven't discussed here, other ports we haven't discussed, but I think you get the idea that even though the ZX Spectrum was limited in its graphics, there was no drag, and the games themselves were just a lot of great fun.
And last of all, I'd like to share with you a really cool prototype, as prototypes are the thing on this channel, are they not? Yes, there were some prototypes for the ZX Spectrum computer, so without further ado, Here they are.
I just don't know. I can't find the words to describe this. Honestly, I don't even know how I found it. I just happened to be looking around and I typed in prototypes and this popped up. It's called Ninja Grannies. From what I can tell, you take on the role of this woman named Mabel and you are basically going around and beating the crap out of people you run into. I assume the first person is a husband, and then as you go along, you fight other grannies and you get into some pretty cool combat. It's a really interesting game, and I'm not sure why it wasn't released. I can't find much information on it. If you know anything more about it, let me know. You can find the ROM all over the internet, and it's really a fun and enjoyable and silly game. But yes, it's this again is Ninja Grannies.
Well, that brings this episode to a close. I really hope all of you enjoyed it. If you did, let us know by subscribing if you haven't already. Click that like button and click the bell icon so you'll be notified when we upload new episodes. Next week, Audi Data is going to be doing the episode, and I think he's going to be talking about the variations of his favorite game, Asteroids. Anyway, I must be going now. It is tea time, and as many of you know, when it is tea time, the world must stop. So, until I see you again, this has been Humphrey the Wolf. I wish you all a good week. Tip, tip, cheerio, and all that sort of stuff. See you all soon. Goodbye.